Hello and welcome to today's episode of Dream Business, Dream Life. Today I'm joined by Zoe Plumley. Zoe is an entrepreneur, keynote speaker and advocate for disability inclusion. Her background is in healthcare, where she developed a passion for helping people. After ill health prevented her from continuing in her role, she retrained and now helps business owners with health conditions just like her via coaching and support services. Hello Zoe, great to have you here.
Great to be here, Emma. Thank you ever so much for having me.
Excellent. And I know nobody can see this, but I feel like I've got to say this anyway. You would not believe the fun and entertainment we have just done, me trying to record that little intro.
It's been hilarious.
Yes, apparently this is Joanna. Don't know where that came from, but this, I assure you, is Zoe. Anyway, I'm an overshare. I could have kept that secret, but I thought I'd share that anyway, because we all make mistakes. We're all human. Anyway, Zoe, this is about you today. So let's take us back to life pre-business owner. Tell us a little bit about your life back then.
So my life was in England. So I grew up in Western-super-Mare, and I worked in multiple roles in healthcare. So starting off as a support worker, healthcare assistant, working up into getting 2 degrees in nursing. So I have worked everywhere from low secure psychiatric hospitals through to A&E, to medical wards, you name it, I've worked it, and I absolutely loved it. I was a self-confessed adrenaline junkie. When it came to work, I loved the going into work and not knowing what was going to come through the doors, and having to really think on my feet and actually sort of have to rely on my brain, which as a blonde person is a little bit interesting at times, but I loved it. And I loved just being with people and making that difference. Unfortunately, as you said in my introduction, I have lots of health issues. So I have brittle asthma, I have heart problems, I have rheumatoid arthritis, everything that was basically set against me, essentially to keep working in the job I absolutely loved. I would be in hospital, every 3 months with my asthma. We're talking, high dependency intensive care unit admissions. I would be very, very poorly. It got to the point where I either had to leave the NHS or they would retire me because of their sickness policy, and that's absolutely fine, understandable. So I then went into a different route. So I went down into the recruitment, safeguarding and compliance sector. So that was my first non-patient care job, if you like, and it was completely different. I was chained to a desk essentially. You'll never know how many toilet breaks I had to have because I was not used to sitting down. But I got into it. I loved the role. Again, it was making a difference. It was a new challenge, and I love that. I love a challenge. Unfortunately, after a couple of years there, I got made redundant, which, as anyone that's been made redundant, it's a horrible feeling to have. It's absolutely appalling. It's just to have your safety structure just taken away from you and you don't know where to turn. It's absolutely devastating. So I then managed to get a new job very quickly. I was very, 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 very lucky, in a very similar role. Unfortunately, no, not unfortunately. Fortunately, 6 weeks later, I fell pregnant with my now daughter. And what the unfortunate bit is I told my employer that I was on probation. I had 12 weeks probation, so I was halfway through, and an hour later, after telling them that I was pregnant, I was given my termination notice, which now doesn't really affect me, but it still makes me feel cross. But at the time, I was absolutely devastated. I remember ringing up the GP surgery because I didn't know. I couldn't stop crying. And at that point, they just said, just come down. Obviously, they diagnosed me with depression. Basically, I had a complete mental breakdown because I just didn't know, I'd been made redundant. I'd then been fired. I was pregnant. I had another little one at home. There was just nowhere to turn. What on earth do I do? And then just to top it all off, COVID then hit, which, as everyone will recall, was definitely an interesting time. And also I was on the shielding list. So I was very much in my own little bubble. I wasn't allowed out. I wasn't allowed to, see people, interact with people. It was a really difficult time. My partner also worked in a care home for learning disabilities. A lot of the COVID, he was actually spent locked in for outbreaks. So therefore I didn't even have him at home. So I was like, right, okay, what can I do? I need to do something. I need to give myself more of a purpose. Historically, so when I was on maternity leave with my eldest, so Logan, I'd set up childcare agencies, and I've run printing businesses before. So I've done business before. I know I can do it. I know I was good at it. But I kept going back into healthcare. So now it's okay. So now I need to rethink I need to take control of my life. I do not want to be in that position ever again where I could lose my income, because that just isn't acceptable to me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back into business. What do I want to do? I was like, well, I want to help people. So I then retrained. I got my certification in coaching. I trained as a neuro-linguistic practitioner, so NLP, so no, neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. I always forget the other P. And timeline. Exactly, peace. And timeline therapist. And I launched my coaching business. And I absolutely loved it, because I could help people that I've literally, I work primarily with business owners that have got health conditions, disability, neurodiversity, and I understand it. I understand the barriers, I understand the limitations. I understand that sometimes we have to go a really, really wonky route, essentially, to get to where we want to go to hit our goals. But as long as we do that, it doesn't matter what wonky route we take, as long as we get there. And a lot of typical business coaches are fantastic, but they may not understand that complexity. They don't understand that sometimes, actually, do you know what? I just can't get out of bed, for example, or the pain's too much, or brain fog is so cloudy, I can't even talk. Business coaches don't necessarily always understand that. So I give that level of understanding. So we talk about, coping strategies. We talk about how to not let our health put the barriers in place. We acknowledge the barriers and go, actually, well, maybe they're not actually the barrier you think they are, and we can just smash through them. Or we talk about the wonky routes that we need to go. And then we also talk about disability impact coaching, which is where if you're given a diagnosis, like for example, when I was given the rheumatoid arthritis, there you go, there's your diagnosis, get on with life. How the heck do you do that? I was completely blindsided. I was like, how do I get on with my life? How do I, there was just no support. I had to shut down the printing business because I could no longer do it. If I'd had support there, I probably wouldn't have had to do it. I wouldn't have shut down my business. My whole life wouldn't have necessarily changed as much. So I want to be that bridging the gap support service, essentially. And I love that. I love knowing that people know that there is someone out there that cares, that actually wants to help, and that can help them to still achieve their dreams. Whilst doing all of that magic, I was also helping with their admin, because again, me being me, I love to help people. So when they would say, oh, I can't do this form, or, this is overwhelming me, or my inbox is cluttered, I'm like, right, just give it here. Just send it over here and I'll help you with it. I didn't realize I was doing a supermarket shop of 2 for the price of 1, essentially. I didn't realize that being a virtual assistant was even a thing. And to one of the other coaches went, Zoe, what on earth are you doing? That's a whole different role. So I then investigated that area further, because again, I loved it. I have OCD. I love a tick list. I love, checking things off. I love a jigsaw puzzle making of, right, okay, well, this needs to go together. How can we do it? So I then started taking on virtual assistant clients as well. Again, with the same niche. So I do have clients that have got no health conditions. They are your stereotypical VA clients. But my passion, again, is helping the business owners that do need that extra support. And then my VA services was launched as well. So we help everyone, because I'm really, really lucky now. I have a team of 12 associates. So we've grown exponentially, massively. It's just so exciting. So we can do everything from website development and maintenance, through to social media, through to accountability sessions, to body doubling, to inbox management, you name it, we can do it. One of my clients calls us a pick and mix sweet shop, and I absolutely love that. I'm like, yes, I could be a chocolate eclair or a lemon bonbon. I can crack on with that. That's great for me. And then we also do a lot of, again, specialist services. So we have an advocacy service. We do a lot with the DWP with benefits. So in particular, we do a disability benefit. So PIP, DLA, access to work, but again, not limited to. We do a lot with blue badge applications. So we're actually an endorsed provider from the Sunflower Lanyard Scheme for blue badge applications. And yes, we're just really, really passionate on all things disability. So that's like an extra service that we offer. We offer that accountability, that support, that personal touch, essentially, because again, we know not all VA clients or coaching clients are the same. Everyone needs that individual path, essentially. Again, because of my passion, I have a summit that is a disability inclusion summit that I want to say I run every October, and I'm going to. So my first one is this October. So I'm so excited about that. That will be an annual event. So this year we have, over 30 speakers from everyone from seven-figure business owners through that have got, have overcome health challenges or diagnoses. And it's a case of, putting that fire in your belly and going, look what they've done, look what they've achieved. If they can do it, I can do it, because everyone can do whatever they choose their mind to do, set their mind to do. And then we also have some speakers that are specialist skills. So, Facebook ads, email marketing, branding, accessible websites, that kind of thing. So, there's the fire in your belly, there's the skills, right? Let's help you to actually go on and do what you want to do to grow your business, scale your business, start your business, wherever you are in your journey, essentially. So that's every October. There might be a hybrid one. We shall see. That's kind of in the pipeline. But yeah, every October there's going to be a virtual summit. And then, we have my membership where I can help people just on a weekly basis, a retouch point with them. And I have an amazing community as well of people that just like-minded. They all understand. We all walk the walk, talk the talk. We all get it. We're all there to support and cheerlead each other. So that's basically my journey in a very, I say, short snippet, but that's where I am. And then also I have my book collaboration with all proceeds going to Mind, which is called Courage. So that's again launching October 2024, but it'll be on Amazon, so you can get it at any point that you're listening to this. And there's 25 of us entrepreneurs that have overcome mental health struggles or challenges. And again, it's, we've overcome this adversity, but look what we've, gone on to develop, gone on to grow. Again, everyone can do this. It doesn't matter where you are now, what your struggles are, what your health barriers are, you can do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I smiled. I've heard that story before because me and Zoe are connected before this. I've heard her story and I smiled as much through that as I'm sure I did through the first time, because it is for me, it is so lovely to hear somebody's growth story that really has brought out their passion, and somebody who completely can understand and resonate with the people that you work with, and you were doing what you do because you know that it was something that was so needed. We talk about the gap in the market, and quite often that's something that we have personally experienced, isn't it? So to be able to build a business to bridge that gap, and such an important gap as well, for you, if we take it back a little bit, obviously, losing your job so suddenly and being newly pregnant, emotions are going to be all over the place, aren't they? And having nothing there, nobody there to help and support you, that would have been really, really tough, for anybody, wouldn't it? Absolutely, for anybody. So it's great that you have built your business and built it so well, purely because of something that you experienced. I absolutely love that. So what would you say were your sort of like biggest challenges at the beginning, the things that you found most difficult when obviously being pregnant and having no job is really tough? In terms of building your business, what would you say were your biggest challenges?
I think from a personal note, I suffer massively with imposter syndrome. So that is probably my biggest challenge, because I'm almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, or I was, where, well, it's just me. No one's going to want me to help. No one's going to want to listen to me. No one's going, it was very much well, I'm just me. And it's even like with my summit, for example, I'm like, well, nobody will want to speak at that. I'm just a little Welsh person on top of a little Welsh mountain. And, but actually people do. And the more that I did, the more that I would have people contact me. And I was like, actually, do you know what? This is really, really needed. And it gave me that buzz, that drive, that actually my passion project, essentially, because all of this is derived from passion, actually is needed. It gave me that push. So that's probably my biggest personal issue and barrier that I'm forever going to have to work on. I think everyone to a degree can relate to imposter syndrome, because it is very real and it is absolutely paralyzing at times. And I think, again, because of when I was setting up my business, because it was so different, and again, it was COVID, so you couldn't just access the support that you would normally access either. It was that, okay, how do I set this up? How do I do that? I had this idea, but how? Where's my tools, essentially, that I need to actually put all this together, to organize it, to actually make it come to life? And again, that's one of the things I now work with, is I now help my clients with the tools. So they're no longer, looking for a spanner and a wrench when actually they need a hammer and a nail, for example. You can tell I've been doing DIY recently, or my other half has, technically.
You've just been falling over all of the tools that he's left lying around.
I was supervising and going, yeah, that's not quite straight.
That's what we do, isn't it? That's what DIY is all about.
Exactly.
Right, it's for me anyway. Yeah. And I think, something you mentioned earlier on is that, people who have, disabilities or neurodiversity or something along those lines will all have their own different ways. We all do, whether we
Yeah.
have a disability or not, in fairness, we all have different ways, but there will be additional needs and challenges that people with disabilities, with neurodiversity will have to overcome. And some of the normal stuff that people are constantly telling us we need to do just won't click because they're just missing that teeny little bit of information. And that's all it is, isn't it? Quite often,
Yeah,
teeny little
absolutely.
thing, a little adaptation of something. And that is going to ultimately make people feel like this entrepreneurial world's not for them because they don't quite fit in that hole. We can't quite tick those
Absolutely.
same boxes. So what you're putting in place is something that bridges that gap, that
Yeah.
shows people that actually you just need to make this little tiny tweak and change to your business, to the way you work or to the way
Yeah.
that you do things, off the shelf tool
Yeah.
that everybody else uses. Let's just tweak yours slightly, and then you can do exactly the same as everybody else. Your disability does not have to stop you, it just has to be done differently. Because like you say,
Absolutely.
if you wake up one morning and you physically, the pain means you can't get out of bed, your business needs to have been built to allow for that to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. And that's not always a straightforward way of doing it, because you need to actually understand the condition, you need to understand how it impacts you, and actually allow for your business to have that fluctuating capacity where some days are brilliant, some days are not. And so that it doesn't matter what business model you go with, it has to have that ability to be malleable, essentially, or to be able to run without your input for that day, for example.
Yeah, that's it. And it's to actually be at the point where you've got somebody to help and support you, to know that it's
Yeah,
okay to have days like that. It doesn't mean that the whole world is going to fall apart, because today you can't do what you were supposed to be doing. It's great to have that support, isn't it? And I think you spoke about, your biggest challenge being imposter syndrome. And I think that's the same for everybody, isn't it?
yeah,
Whatever stage of business you're at, there's always this, whether you call it a monkey on your shoulder, whatever you want to call it, there's always something, isn't there, that crops up that thinks, oh no, I can't do that. That's
yeah,
not for me. And quite often, I find personally, and I see this with a lot of my clients as well, it's not that it's not for them, it's just that we haven't found the way that works for us. So for some people, the big way of launching a course, for example, they love all of the bells and whistles, everything that goes around it. They thrive off it. They do really well at it. Amazing. For somebody else, that really might not work for them. So it doesn't mean they can't still launch and they can't still make money. They've just got to adapt and do that slightly differently. And I think that's key, isn't it? That is key,
yeah.
that we actually do things our own way.
Absolutely, that's a brilliant example for someone that's neurodivergent. A massive all singing, all dancing launch would likely be, not for everyone, but for the majority of people, will be completely overstimulating, completely overwhelming, and will actually put them into overwhelm paralysis, and they just won't do anything, and therefore they don't get launched. And then it's like, again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of, well, that didn't go well, I had no sales, or I didn't do X, Y, and Z. So then they just give up because, well, what's the point? Because nobody wants it, because no one's bought it. And actually, if they didn't go all singing or dancing or bells and whistles and went a different way, a quieter way, more of a soft launch essentially, then actually that's a lot more beneficial for them.
Yeah, completely. So how you've built your business model, have you built that around your own personal medical conditions that you've got? You've built that around so that the business can still continue to work when you're poorly or when you're, not having a good week?
I didn't to start with. I will confess that when I hit the ground running and didn't stop and put myself into absolute burnout, which is never something I would recommend. So it was very much a case of I'd be saying to all my clients, you need to do this, this, and this, but I wasn't following my own advice, which I think a lot of us are guilty about doing. And it was only in June when I had surgery when I had to make a difference. I had to make a change because, I had the surgery on the Monday. The Tuesday, I was high as a kite on all sorts of painkillers. And I was still trying to deal with clients and team inquiries. And, don't get me wrong, my team think it's brilliant. They've got a few WhatsApp note messages that are pinned because they're like, if we ever need a laugh, we just have to listen to this one message. But actually, I shouldn't have been working, and I hadn't allowed myself to be working, because I thought I built it okay, and I hadn't. So since then, I have completely overhauled my business. to make it so that actually I don't have to be in the business every day. And yes, that's meant that I've actually had to scale back a little bit to put other things in place. And again, scaling back is never a bad thing if it means putting in the right structure and the right cementing the bricks and mortar that you need essentially to then be able to grow and scale to how it fits you. So now, you know, my world is so much more different. Yes, I still fill it with a million different things, and everyone goes, Zoe, what are you doing? You're trying to take over the world essentially. But I do it at a pace that suits me. I can then plan. So, you know I have surgery again in November. I have already got the plans in place that I know I won't be in the same position that I was in June, where I have to answer questions and queries and everything else. I know I could take that time out. My business isn't going to break. It's not going to fall apart. It's still going to run. It's still going to grow. I'm still going to have income coming in, but I'm not actually doing the day-to-day work. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. And sometimes that's really scary to let go of that control. And knowing that, there's the reins to my baby, so to speak, please don't break it. But again, it's taking that leap of faith. And once you've done it, actually life is so much more easy is the wrong word, but you can just breathe. You're not in a complete stress all the time of worry.
Yeah, that's it. I always use the phrase slow down to speed up.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes you need to do that, don't you? Sometimes you need
Absolutely.
to do that. Let's strip this back a little bit so we can actually rebuild it much stronger and in a way that works much better for us as business owners, because ultimately that's what we want, isn't it? A business that works for us, has the impact and helps and supports all of the people. That is our purpose. That is the reason we're doing it. But we've got to do it in a way that doesn't burn us out, because we're no good to anybody, are we? If we're burnt out, we're not able to help anybody then, are we? So so it's super, super important to do that. And I think what you've just shared is a really powerful message for anybody that is listening, that is perhaps feeling that their business is taking over their lives a little bit. It's okay to step back a little bit, to allow yourself to to take a bit of a call it a downward spiral, call it whatever you want to do, just move backwards a little bit to enable yourself to move forwards. Because once you start to move forwards in a way that works better for you, you will move a lot quicker than you would have done if you'd have just stayed where you were. So when we get to the end, towards the end of the podcast, what I always ask all of my guests to do, and I'm not going to be any different here with you, Zoe, is would you like to share with us a top tip? So something that's going to help people out in the audience.
So my top tip is going to be a very big cliche, essentially. It is not even necessarily a business one. It's just to remember to breathe. Because again, I am one that will get very overwhelmed, very overstimulated and just go, oh my days. And then I'll stick my head in a hole and I ignore things. And that's not helpful. So if you just remember to breathe, okay, so if something happens in your business, just take a really big, deep breath. And one of my friends gave me this little trick, which I'll share with you guys. And it's literally, if you breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds, hold it for, I might get the numbers wrong on this, but hold it for 3 seconds and then breathe out through your mouth for 8 seconds. It like re-regulates you. And I do that an awful lot. So even if you can't do that and hold your breath for that long, just remember to breathe, take a breath, make a cup of tea, just walk away from whatever situation it is that you find that's, anxiety driving or overstimulating or just so overwhelming that you can't deal with it right that second. And that's okay. Give yourself that time to just sort of regulate yourself, take that breath, have a cup of tea, and then come back to it when you're in a better focused state to actually deal with it. So yes, just remember to breathe. Breathing is to breathe.
All of that. Amazing tip. So finally, if any of our listeners want to learn more about you, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
So I am kind of everywhere. So they can connect with me on LinkedIn. So that's just Zoe Plumley. And then if they search L&L Business Inclusion, that is my free community. So anyone is welcome in that, whether you just have, a broken arm for 6 weeks, whether you have a long-term chronic health condition, you are more than welcome into it. And then we have L&L coaching services and L&L virtual assistant services. They are on Facebook and on Instagram. And also if you Google us, the websites will show up as well.
Amazing. And all of the show notes, all of the links will be included in the show notes as well. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been amazing chatting with you. And thank you to everybody else for listening. We will see you next time.